time for section 5 of the strawberries and cream blanket, which is this section here, and it's kind of a bit of a boxed moss stitch that we're looking at, and it follows the rest of the sections that we have already done. So if you've missed any of the ones before, then pop back and find the videos for those, and then we'll be ready to work section 5 together. If you haven't met me before, I'm Hannah from Afghan Crochet, and I'm delighted to meet you and work on this blanket with you. We are running a crochet along in July 2022, but if it's not that time anymore, then please don't worry. I'll put links in the description for where you can find the free version of the pattern, where you can purchase a PDF to download, and where you can also purchase the entire thing as a course. So have a little look down below, see which option suits you best, and let's get going. Okay, so now we've finished our intersectional part here on the top of section 4, we're ready to have a look at section 5. And as you'll see, it looks tricky, but they all look tricky, don't they? And I promise you it's not, because we're going to change colour each row, and we are going to use some of the techniques that we already know and work over the top of chain 1 spaces to create this box look. So it might look like you're going to change colour during a row, but you're not going to. We're going to use the same technique that we've used before in a number of our stitches, but this one in particular where we go over the top and work into 2 rows below. So it's just, the key is to know where to do that and where our chain 1s and our skip stitches are. So let's have a look at that now. You're going to need to grab yarn L and yarn I, so these 2 colours here, and we are set to go. Okay, so in the pattern we are now set to work row 70, and we begin with this darker colour, so yarn L, and you're going to join it at the end of the stitch here, as we've done each time. And then you'll be ready to turn and work row 70. And so row 70 is kind of like a setup row really, and all we need to do is chain 1, and then we work a US single crochet or a UK double crochet into every stitch that we come across. So for every stitch in your blanket you work a stitch. So it's just straight through with no yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a US single crochet or a UK double crochet. And there's one of those for each stitch that we come across. And then at the end of the row, we are going to change colour to yarn I. So here we are at the end of the row, and we're ready to change colour. And then we can turn and we're ready for row 71. Now row 71 starts with a chain 4, which is something we haven't done before. We haven't made a chain stand for a tall stitch in this pattern before. So what this chain 4 is 1, 2, 3 of them are representative and will be a UK treble crochet or a US double crochet, and then that chain 1 is going to act as our spacer because we're going to skip this next stitch, and then we skip the next stitch, and then we work a UK treble into the next 2 stitches. So skip this one and then work into the next 2. And you can see the sun is chasing me. I'm going to try and get into it so it's not too bright for you there. And then once we've done that, we are going to chain 1, and then we're going to skip 1, and then we're going to work into the next 2. So we're doing UK treble stitches or US double crochet stitches for this row. And then what you'll see is that chain 3 and then the extra, the 4th chain of there, that becomes 1 tall stitch and then a chain 1. And then you've got your spaces to work into as we go back over this row. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip 1, and then we're going to work into the next 2. We're going to chain 1, and then we skip 1. And so these 3 stitches are your repeat. So a stitch, a chain 1, and skip 1. and we just carry along the row like this until we get to the last stitch. The end of our repeat, we chain one and we skip one, and then we just work a stitch into that last one there, and then we're ready to break our yarn and change colour for the next row. And now we begin row 72, and that begins with a chain one, and then we're going to do a shorter stitch here. We're going to do a UK double crochet, US single crochet in that first stitch, and then we have a skip stitch here, a chain one and a skip stitch. So we're going to work over the top of it and down into 2 rows below. So this stitch pattern is really nice and straightforward because you just aim for the same colour. You're going to join it into that colour. We're going to work a UK treble stitch into that stitch there, over the top, making sure you pull it up as before to the height of that row. And then we're going to work a UK double crochet in the next 2. So they're US single crochets, and then we're going to work a UK treble crochet into this next stitch here, and then the shorter 2 in the next 2, and then our longer stitch down into 2 rows below, and then we keep repeating all the way along, and you'll come to the last stitch. And now we've got to the last stitch. What we find is the chain 4, you remember, that we did on the previous row. And so the 3 chains count as the stitch from that previous row. So you want to put your stitch for the end of this row in the 1, 2, the 3, the third stitch, the third chain rather of that row. And so we're going to change colour here again. And then we're ready to turn and work our next row. So now you're ready to work the next row, and in fact you know everything you need to know for this whole section now, because rows 71 and 72, the last 2 rows that we have just worked, they are the repeat for this section. So we're going to work rows 71 and 72 in sequence, in this exact colour sequence as well, up until you get to row 78. So if you want to go ahead and work rows 73 to 78 as the repeat of those 2 rows, and then your intersection part, and then we'll be ready for section 6, which is the centre of the blanket and the final piece of the puzzle. That's the last thing we need to know for the main blanket itself before we then crack on and finish the other half.